All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the wasmCloud community meeting, Wednesday, September 20th. We're going to start off with not one, but two demos today, which is very exciting, and then get into some pretty lively discussion around metrics and then the 0.78 official release. So I'm going to go ahead and hand off to Vance, who is actually live at the TM Forum DTW 23. He's talking about wasmCloud, of course, a little bit, but is heading up the WebAssembly Canvas Catalyst there in that effort. So, Vance, I'll let you go ahead and take it away.
All right, thank you. Well, yeah, I'm here on the show floor. The show's closed for the day. It's 7 p.m. now. I'm in Copenhagen. This show is it's put on by the TM Forum, which is the group that manages the software systems that telephone companies use to run their business. So it's a very telco show. I'm gonna share my screen here. I think I'll just show you this one slide, and then I'll show you what we're demoing. We've got a live demo. The group came together. We've got Orange and Vodafone and Etisalat and NBN Co. These are all national community or global communication service providers. So mobile phone operators and that sort of thing. These guys partnered with us, and they all had a great interest in wasmCloud and using WebAssembly and using wasmCloud to realize that. Our colleagues here at Cosmonic have been working with Orange already, but we've introduced these other folks. So most people on the floor here either had an inkling of WebAssembly or hadn't heard of it at all. So it's been great fun introducing everyone to that. So you can see this slide I've got up?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, so this is showing the canvas, as we're using in the terminology here, of the applications that we're doing. So this we have the two blocks, production block and core commerce block. So core commerce is that's the where we have all the billing software for a service provider. Production is where the network is and the things that are needed to run the network in real time. So this thing at the bottom is a converged charging system. So if you have a prepaid service, you need a real-time charging system, and that's what this does. So this block at the bottom will need to interact with these other applications. So we've implemented all of these blue blocks as actors in wasmCloud. So we wrote Rust code and are orchestrating those using WDAM. And it's quite an eye-opener for folks, because basically you're easily looking at $1 million worth of software there. So people's idea about these things is that they're very large and expensive and come from providers like Nokia and Ericsson, et cetera. And so we have demonstrated, minimum viable product, proof of concept, but we have demonstrated running this stuff in wasmCloud. So you go over here and I'll share. Well, there's the this is a public facing. I can share the URL. It is behind a registration wall, which is a bit of a pain in the ass, but that's how they do things. I like to cover everything. I'll show you the UI. So if you can see that, there's our complement of actors running. And I shared a picture earlier. We've got these this little cluster of ARM servers. We've got this metered power that shows everyone there's only a couple watts of power going on here, and we've implemented all of those things and orchestrated them with wasmCloud, and people have been really blown away by what they're seeing here. So it's been fun.
Vance, this is awesome. I've seen like little snippets of you, like, sending sending messages about what you're working on. I know that we've talked about like the Wadham daemon scaler, which is that what you're using here to run like the different copies of actors?
Yeah, that's right. So we're distributing 10 replicas of everything across all the Linux hosts. So there's a Mac Mini that's inside the kiosk here that's running the providers, and all of the actors are just being distributed across these little tiny servers. And again, it's really people. Actually, there was one other thing I wanted to share. Let me do that. I've got one other slide, and this has really been an eye opener for a lot of people. And that's really how you build a large system like this. Once we've implemented everything in wasmCloud, putting it all together becomes quite interesting. So there's the slide, and let me just play from current slide, and then I'll just share that. Oops, seems to have moved. I'll fix that in a moment. Okay, and oops, right here. So once we realized all of that, all of those actors, and I showed you how they interact with each other, well, everything in yellow is all of the open APIs, REST APIs that we usually use to integrate between these different software components. But what we did in this project is we highlighted the fact that two actors within the same canvas, as we call it, or wasmCloud instance, having to interact using REST is really awkward and unnecessary. And so we took one of these REST open APIs, the service inventory API, and we reverse engineered it to create a service model. We implemented a contract in Smithy. They did all the same things, and then we use the SDK to create an interface for that. And we created another actor, which implements the actor-to-actor interface instead of the normal TM form standard interface. And so we're able to take all of that yellow and replace it with the green. And what we say to people is everything in yellow represents carbon emissions, energy cost, latency, and technical complexity. And if we have a lot of implementation of software systems that communicate with each other, we can't ignore that cost. And our partners agree, and they want to see that eliminated. And so we've demonstrated how that can be done, which has added a perspective to folks who really only saw Kubernetes and they really only saw open APIs as the way to do integration and deployment. And so we've opened eyes for a lot of people. That's it for me.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, Vance, I really like that that last slide that you showed, like talking about the unnecessary hop that you could take over HTTP and kind of how you're solving that, which is really cool. I would love it. I don't know if you have any of this in a publicly accessible place or if you can share, but I would love to take a look at your slides and also the demo if you have an open GitHub repo for that. But only if that's something that is fine for you to share and you have in the open.
Yeah, I'll drop the URL in. It's behind a registration wall, but I can find another way to share it as well. But all the source code and all the slides and all the stuff is available publicly, if a little bit awkwardly.
Okay, yeah. Well, I hope you're not getting kicked out quite yet. Does anybody have any questions for Vance? All right. Well, I think we can go ahead and move on then. Thank you so much, Vance, for coming in and talking a little bit about what you're showing off and doing a demo. I hope is the conference, this was the end of the conference for today. Is it still going like through the end of the week, or is it done now?
Tomorrow is the last day. We're going to end with the awards, and we'll hopefully bring one home.
Awesome. Yeah, please post in the wasmCloud Slack or let us know when you bring home that award. Super exciting. Good luck at the rest of the conference. All right, folks. Well, as we look forward, the next thing on our agenda for today, like I said, is another awesome demo. Kevin is here and going to be demoing what he coined building NATS microservices in wasmCloud. I'm super excited to see this one, and so we'll go through the demo and then get on to discussion. So, Kevin, you should have co-host, hopefully, so you should be free to go.
All right, let me see if I can share my terminal window here. All right, can you see my terminal window now?
Yep, I can see terminal, and then I think I can see a peaking washboard behind it.
That's weird.
I just want to let you know if you were just trying to share the terminal.
I am sharing just the terminal, but I'm also getting, it's like it's creating some kind of weird box around the terminal. Whatever, it's Unix or Linux. Anyway, so you can still see it, right? You can see the question marks in here.
Yeah, I can see that part. I just want to make sure you weren't just trying to do that.
All right, so a little bit of background. One of the main reasons why people, one of the many reasons why people like using NATS is, historically we just say that you don't need service discovery anymore. Now that once you're on NATS, you don't need service discovery, and that's sort of true. But I think when we talk about not needing service discovery, most of the time we're talking about not needing to know where things are. So location transparency or, location agnosticism, but we don't actually have facilities within NATS for things like service discovery until, now. Over the past, I'd say, I guess a week or two, well, maybe a little bit longer, some of the clients have been rolling out, some of the NATS clients have been rolling out with a new feature that allows you to expose your code that is following the request response pattern as a service. And then you can use the NATS client or the NATS CLI to discover and get information on those services. So I'm using a local build here because I think this CLI version that has the micro function in it, I think it was released today. So I've got a service called Bob that's running, and you can see here the service is Bob. All the services have unique IDs. This is the demo service. So if you do NATS micro serve, this is what you'll get. You just get a chance to name it. You can add arbitrary metadata to the services that you run. So these are added by NATS. And then each service has one or more endpoints. And so this particular endpoint is called Echo, and the subject is bob.echo. And in addition to all of the regular high-level metadata, it's also keeping track of the number of requests, processing time, when the service was started, the number of errors. So if I do, it's micro, when I get to the stats on the Bob service, you'll see that the Bob service with this ID and this endpoint is at 5 requests, and it's keeping track of, you know, the microseconds for the time. So if I were to do so I sent a message to bob.echo, and now when I do the stats on Bob, you'll see that the requests have gone up. So what's interesting about this is, again, this allows me to discover microservices and get like a service catalog of stuff that's running on my NATS infrastructure or in my NATS account. But it doesn't sacrifice any of the good things that are that we all take for granted from NATS. So it's still completely location agnostic. When you get the information on these things, when you get the information on it, there's nothing here that says, you know, this is on the inside or the outside of a leaf node or what account it's from or anything else. It's just the service is there, and if I use this subject, I can access it. So obviously this is wasmCloud Wednesday. So one thing that I want to show is you can list all of the available services that are, you know, within that are within communication within your NATS CLI. And so we saw the NATS CLI demo, which I created. It's called Bob, but we also have a wasmCloud actor running using nothing but the wasmCloud messaging contract that has advertised itself as a service. So I can now get info on calculator, and you'll see calculator has endpoints add, subtract, and multiply. And obviously I'm faking some of the data here, but you can sort of get the idea. It's the same stuff that we got with Bob, but I'm just faking this a little bit. So right now I'm doing this manually inside an actor, but my plan is to just add an option to the NATS messaging provider, where you can supply your service advertising information in the link def, and it just magically appears as a NATS service. That's the plan. I've got a little bit of design work to do on it, but otherwise that's pretty much it. I mean, being able to have this kind of thing and have, you know, first class service catalog support inside NATS for essentially no cost is pretty fantastic, and it takes very little effort to expose wasmCloud actors as services as well. No, not that much of a demo, but I wanted to show it off a little bit. Yeah, Brooks.
So, Kevin, you said it took not that much effort to expose like an actor as this.
Yeah.
How does NATS here, I guess, first of all, discover the actor as a service? And then I saw you have kind of discrete, whether it's endpoints or operations like add, multiply, subtract, that kind of stuff. What's the is that metadata on the request? Is that something that you have to specifically design for? How does that work?
Yeah, I forgot the actual syntax here, but it's it's basically just a set of subject protocols where when you do micro LS, actually, I love this. There we go. So it made a request on SRV info, and all of the services running replied to that. And so that's how it got the list here. And if I do calculator info and I do trace, you'll see it did info on calculator and got one set of data. Then it did stats.calculator this ID. So what is implicit here that is also super powerful is that if I run the calculator service in here, each running instance of this would have its own unique ID. And so I can then see that I have 50 instances of the calculator service running, and it will then keep track of the usage and error rate and processing time on the service as a whole, or the service with this specific ID. So let me see if I can. So if I do calculator and then the ID, it looks exactly the same as the last time because that's the only instance of calculator running. But if there were 10 different instances of calculator running, I could select them by their unique ID and get individual stats. And if I just grabbed info on calculator, I would get aggregate stats from everything that replies. Yeah, Dan, what's in here, what I'm showing is everything in ADR 32. Yeah, the protocol is defined there. But also good news is that if you're using the Go or Rust or Java or any of the major clients, you already have the ability to explicitly publish service information. So if you're using Rust, the Rust client, async nats version 0.31 or later, and you enable the service feature flag, you get this stuff automatically. I mean, you still have to, write code to publish your service metadata, but it will do things like keep track of stats on that particular subject.
Thinking about this in a maybe turtles all the way down way, if I was writing, I know this kind of goes against the contract idea for writing wasmCloud actors and kind of tying it specifically to nats. Would you have an actor have information about itself as a service, and then you can make a request to make the actor publish metadata and information about things it's going to respond to? Or is this something that you would recommend doing as like a not administrator, but outside of the wasmCloud app sphere?
I wouldn't do it outside of the wasmCloud app. I mean, you sort of could, but yeah, for a couple of reasons, it's probably not the best idea. Like I said, I think what I want to try doing is putting this as a feature in the Nats messaging capability provider. And if your actor is exposing a request response pattern on one or more endpoints, then you should be able to supply some metadata in that link definition, and then the capability provider will just automatically take care of publishing your stuff as a service, and it'll keep track of the stats for you and all that stuff.
That makes perfect sense. Okay. Yeah, I was kind of looking for like a like the right integration point. I think at the provider level, like on a link def, makes sense. Okay, I've been monopolizing question time. Does anyone else have any questions for Kevin on this this demo, NATS microservices.
Yeah, I had a quick question. It kind of dovetails with our next topic, which is talking about metrics, which is a bit of a spoiler, but because NATS microservices seem like they're keeping things like per request statistics, I guess as somebody who's interested in operating wasmCloud at a pretty decent scale, if we end up or think about kind of like on especially on the NATS messaging provider and other places, kind of using some of this microservices metadata as kind of more of a first class, like it's just a feature of wasmCloud. Do we would it make sense to sort of pull that metadata or like those statistics actually from whatchamacallit, like from NATS itself? Like I think Surveyor doesn't have microstats. It probably should. I think there's actually a issue about it.
Yeah.
Or would it be better to like integrate actually to deeper wasmCloud level?
I think it's really I think that comes down to preferences. So the NATS servers are not keeping track of the stats. So when I make this request on service.ping, it's just a straight scatter gather, and the services that are running will respond to it. And the services that are running are the ones that are responsible for keeping their usage stats. So one thing that could be done, I think you kind of alluded to this, is that the capability provider could do something like expose those stats as open telemetry or something like that, or Prometheus. But for now, given that this feature, at least in the CLI, is a day old, it's probably worth just kind of playing around with to see which usage patterns emerge.
Makes sense. I think it was more just, I guess I didn't realize offhand that the server side wasn't actually keeping track of these statistics. It's actually up to the individual service. So that makes sense. I wonder if down the line, I think we need to figure out, and again, we'll discuss more, what some of the metrics data even looks like in the first place. But I do wonder if at some point, once this feature's had a little bit of time to bake and we've had some time to think about it, if it would make sense to actually integrate that like at a deeper level within wasmCloud and just have that like be part of the provider SDK, for example. I'm not sure.
Could be. Theoretically, you could do something where every actor that sits on a lattice could also expose itself as a service, but not all actors use NATS messaging, which means it wouldn't make any sense for them to appear as a NATS microservice. And like you said, the NATS servers are completely unaware of any of this stuff. The NATS server doesn't know what a microservice is. The only thing it knows is the NATS client.
Well, I feel like this is a good well, before I segue, any other questions? Cool. Well, Dave.
Oh, no, I was just going to say no questions, but thanks for sharing, Kevin. That thing is awesome.
Yeah,
I can really see a future there. That is very nice. I know I was playing with NATS a bit and a little bit of wasmCloud and going, gosh, I really would like to be able to publish some sort of extra discovery on top of, just the subjects. And it just fits right in there. So I'm looking forward to playing with that.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Sorry, Kevin, I missed it. Is that only for the request reply? Or can I inject that metadata into anything that is running behind it?
you can't inject metadata into anything, and exposing your code as a service is something that your code has to do explicitly using, either just sort of manually subscribing to the service topics, or using one of the APIs that's available in a language specific SDK. But the usage pattern for the services described in this is, at least at the moment, currently it's just request reply.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, because I'm envisioning be able to create a graph of maybe the background processes that are happening as well, and the correlation between them, maybe through some metadata.
If you want actual metadata like that, then you probably want to use Net Surveyor or just some other metrics. This is specifically for application level service discovery.
Okay.
All right, at risk of matching up my patience again with the exact length of time that it takes for people to come off of mute. My bad on that one. I think we can, this is a great segue. Dan kind of touched on this a little bit into our next topic, which is around wasmCloud metrics. Let me go ahead and bring up the original issue here, just so that we can actually get, wow, did we close it? Just so that we can get the right context. Sorry, 1 second. Let me find this. I could just use the search field, that's how things actually work. Not that. There it is. Okay, just didn't know the title. So Steve filed an issue the other week. Thank you so much, Steve, talking about RPC invocations. We have an ADR, which you can actually go look at, which talks about separating, oh, maybe that's just the wrong link, separating out RPC events onto a different topic compared to our regular cloud events. And that's just because they were a little bit different. And in the refactor to the Rust host, we don't have the wasmbus.rpc EVT events getting published for every invocation that succeeds or fails in the system. This was really nice beforehand to be able to subscribe to the RPC EVT topic whenever you're doing debugging or watching things. You can see the status of all the invocations that flow through a system. But really, the main point of these events were to be able to create kind of an aggregate metric. You can watch the number of invocations succeeded or invocation failed over time and get an idea for if your service, the thing that you're running in wasmCloud, is succeeding in what it's doing. You can create essentially a percentage of successful requests. This is kind of like what a lot of service mesh products offer. And we're kind of doing it. We were doing it straight up over NATS. And over the course of the discussion, which I'll go ahead and send in the chat here, and I think us, like Steve and us on the maintainer side, kind of got to the point where we're thinking that really this feels a lot more like a useful metric than it needs to be a discrete cloud event per se. And while we're thinking about one metric, we might as well think of other things that would be great to instrument with metrics in the host. And I don't think Patrick is actually here today, but thank you so much, Patrick, for filing this RFC over about host metrics, really just talking about implementing Prometheus metrics. And, there's some various design aspects in here that I won't go too deep on. I'll just try to send this out. Now, Dan, I know that you have talked about implementing Prometheus metrics in wasmCloud before. I think it's been on your wish list for a little while as a infrastructure person who runs wasmCloud. Would you be interested in talking a little bit more about maybe what you think about this RFC and what you think would be useful as a Prometheus metric?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a couple different things that sort of are wrapped up in this RFC. So we do already have OTel support, right, for tracing, which is great. I don't know how many people on this call have tried that out, but like it's really, really nice to be able to get that data. I think some of the things that are missing from that are kind of more at an aggregate level, especially now that, or rather for historical comparison, right? In the old washboard in the Elixir host, we used to have like a slash metrics endpoint, which gave you some decent summary statistics. But now that that's sort of not really a thing anymore, and we've transitioned to the Rust host, like we lost some of that introspection. And so things that are useful are kind of more just like at a higher level, things, information about a particular host, like how many actors is it running, how many providers, like how many invocations has a particular actor or provider had. Because once you have that, you can start calculating some interesting summary statistics, particularly around like your usage rates of individual actors. Like, do you need to scale up? Do you need to scale down? Like, it gives you a little bit better information there. So that's kind of at a host level. I think the follow on here is also at a provider level. Like, it could be really great at some point for individual providers to be able to expose metrics, stuff, you know, for example, HTTP server, HTTP client, right? It'd be great to have, you know, the counter for the number of 500s or 400s or whatever. That's pretty common in pretty much any other ecosystem out there. And I think we want to be able to do the same thing in wasmCloud. I think there's a lot of implementation to sort of figure out, especially with how does the host grab those metrics from individual providers? Do we surface them purely through OTel? Do we just have, you know, a slash metrics endpoint on a particular port like we normally do? Do we support both? Should it go over NATs? I think where Patrick in particular was leaning towards is probably just having that slash metrics endpoint. But if anybody has opinions on how to do observability and metrics, like now's the time. That RFC is open. You know, feedback is definitely more than welcome. I know, again, like Brooks mentioned, as someone who is operating wasmCloud in production every day, like I'm really excited to actually start getting some of this data in place.
Yeah, this is just to invite everybody explicitly, definitely open floor time for discussion, questions, requests, all that stuff.
I mean, I'm biased towards following the semantic conversion for that type of thing done, but that's just from my experience. I don't know if that has been talked before.
You're a little quiet on your end. Sorry if I don't want to
Really?
you know, make you, well, that's
What?
okay. That's better now, actually, that really that you just said. Would you mind repeating your
Yeah, no, the open telemetry semantic conversions, they have a lot of predefined keys you're supposed to hook into it that have a particular meaning. So a lot of tools are built around that nowadays. So maybe that could be a starting point for knowing what metric to expose related to HTTP calls, for example.
Yeah, I think I linked to, or I mean, it's kind of just the overall event model, right? I think since we're already doing OTel, we may as well keep going with that. We've already made that decision, right? For tracing, there's no reason not to do it for metrics at the moment. So yeah, I think I would prefer to see us follow, you know, community practices and the specs as much as possible. I think we just need to make that clear.
Better together for me, you know, like I'm tired in the community fighting so much over triviality sometimes. So I don't know. Like, it's really strong opinion against it. Sure, but yeah, I don't know. That's my thought.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the goal here. As we think of wasmCloud as something that's in the cloud native landscape and, you know, going to be used by people who are building cloud native apps now, whether it's a totally new use case, they're trying to use WebAssembly or just trying to, you know, take something that they're currently doing in Kubernetes, for example, and doing it in wasmCloud. I think our use of cloud events and NATs and OTLP and, you know, OCI, all those things is all under the goal of using the open standard and community standard. I see no reason to do something different here. Seems to be a very well-defined community standard for doing metrics, and I think we'll follow that as much as we can to a T. Right. Well, I did drop the RFC into the community meeting chat here and on the YouTube live stream. So please feel free to go, and you do not have to be a wasmCloud contributor or a member of the org to comment on that issue. So please feel free to go and leave comments or a thumbs up or whatever you'd like to do. I'm going to cross post this in Slack because I think this will be a good thing for people who are not like attending this community call right now to weigh into. This is an RFC that's still proposed. We're not planning on taking any actions yet until we go through kind of the RFC process, which we have outlined in one of our more recent ADRs. But please feel free to leave feedback on this one. I'm looking forward to hear what you all think. And then I think it's going to be pretty awesome to add metric support in a soon to come version of wasmCloud. So very fun. Quick last check if anybody has any questions or comments. Otherwise, we'll move on to the last thing in the meeting today. All right, that sounds good. Then we can go ahead and move on to the last thing in the call today, which would be pretty short and sweet. I have a blog. We have a blog post and upcoming official release of wasmCloud 0.78. If you've been paying attention to the org, we did cut a pre-release of version 78 of the Rust host, which has been really exciting. We've included binaries on the release, and then also, of course, published some OCI images that you can pull down and run yourself. And we've gone through like 1 or 2 RCs as we just wrap up this release and get it, fully ready for people to use and fix some last bugs and all things like that. But as we've been going through, we are essentially right now, we are feature frozen for future things going into the 0.78 release. There's always going to be more work to do, of course. But we're pretty happy with where this host is now after really getting a chance to test it out with our existing workflows and things like that. So this is really just a call out for everybody to keep an eye out either today or tomorrow for an official 0.78 release. And then from there, we'll be able to get into actually milestoning out future features for wasmCloud. And we're going to be following a strict, the Rust Simver, same thing that we do in all of our other projects in the wasmCloud ecosystem. But just wanted to note that that release is coming pretty soon. And we're going to be able to get that out into Wash as the regular version that runs when you run Wash up, as well as we'll probably have an associated WADM or WADAM release to go with it as well that just takes advantage of all of the new things that we've been putting into wasmCloud. So this is really sweet. I'm really looking forward to showing you all the posts that we've got together for the 0.78 release, because it kind of touches on, we've talked about it in a community call, but why 0.78? What we're doing with versioning going forward, especially thinking of wasmCloud as a proposed incubating project in the CNCF and something that's working to a 1.0 release as we reach some major milestones in the WebAssembly community and just generally operating as a project for the last 3 years. So there's not really any explicit callouts for version 78, other than if you've got an application, would love it if you tried it out. It is a drop-in replacement for version 63, which is the Elixir OTP host of wasmCloud. So everything should work exactly the same. And that's how it's been for the last couple of RCs that we've tested, but always happy to take more feedback. All right. any questions there on that release? It's really just a general call out. Awesome. Well, I think that is kind of the end of the community meeting, at least the scheduled agenda for today. So since we've got a little bit of time left in the call, now is a great time for just general Q&A, things about the broader WebAssembly community, things like that. So I'm just going to go on mute for a second, and anybody's welcome to take the floor.
I would just call out that the WASM Day has schedule's been released. There's still a couple talks that are moving around for folks that could or could not make to Chicago. wasmCon, obviously we talked about that last week. Everything is still live up on YouTube on the Linux Foundation YouTube channel. And we still have some work to do to process some of the video recordings from Bacon, the Bytecode Alliance conference, but I'd like to pull out at least the demo hour and a few of the talks and get those on there to go from there. Those are the big community things that are happening. We are already kicking off planning for WasmCon 2024, as well as for WASM Day EU, which will be held in Paris here in early 2024.
And I wanted to ask if there's anyone that's really excited about running the Rust host, basically the new releases of wasmCloud on platforms like ARM or like Windows, and if anyone's had any experiences with that or like questions or things you ran into.
Yeah, Victor, I know personally I've had a lot of fun like deploying it on like the little Raspberry Pi 02W or whatever, which is ARM64. But
yeah,
like Jordan is also deploying it on a bunch of little ARM things too.
that's awesome. Jordan, what are the machines in the 4ARM cluster? Is it Pis? Is it like Odroids? Is it other stuff?
At the moment, it's 4 CM4s on the Turing Pi, to that little 4 cluster board. But yeah, two of them have 8 gigs of memory, 2 of them have 2. All of them are working really well, and I have 3 of the nodes are running wasmCloud. 1 of the nodes is running WADAM, and yeah, I mean, I'm really having no issues with it at the moment, to be honest. Here in about 45 minutes, Google Coral will be arriving at my door, and that has a spot on the board as well. So we'll see how that works.
It sounds like it could be a provider. A Coral provider. I actually don't know how much you get for.
Huh?
I was going to say I don't know how much you get for just regular compute that you can use along with the AI stuff on the Coral, but that's super interesting.
Yeah, I don't know anything about machine learning, but I bought it because people keep saying it. So $27 well spent. I don't know what to do with it.
Well, Jordan, now you can say machine learning.
Yeah.
Which one did you get, Jordan? Is it a PCIe board or is it a USB-C or 3?
PCIe. Allegedly, it has a its own little slot on the host board that connects directly to one of the nodes. So fingers crossed.
Is that the one you got? The dev board? It looks actually kind of beefy.
No. I got, let me see if I can find it. One sec.
I think I actually have a dev board. I don't know. I think it was they might have like older versions. I'm not sure. It was at least a few years ago, but I have a dev board and then an old or a Coral and then an old NVIDIA Jetson and then a Raspberry Pi. And like I always wanted to get like a little rack to like slot them all into and connect them into a lattice. I just don't know. I always get like paralyzed. I get it all set up and I get SSH in and I hit the terminal. I'm like, wait, but what do I actually want to do? What do I want to do with this?
That's the point where you start a new project. They're actually used for anything. But
The
okay.
corals themselves are really good for like OpenCV workloads. The instructions that their chips kind of come for and the amount of memory they have make them good for like streaming data. So the latest and greatest there is stuff with like liquid neurons. But it's like image segmentation, OpenCV jobs, like object recognition. Those are all out of the box things that you should be able to get running pretty quickly.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
another use case actually that I think a friend ran into was he just tried to manage his like at-home cameras and stuff. So like just like that's like a good camera feed to run OpenCV on, or like if you have like an outside sort of camera or stuff like that. That sounds like it'd be pretty good with that use case that Justin mentioned.
Yeah, that's absolutely one. People use it's called Frigate, I think. I haven't used it before, but it is for exactly that.
You know, actually, when there were all the wildfires in Canada and, you know, kind of all of that, like bad air quality went down the east coast of the US, I did look up and you can buy like little air quality sensors that plug into these little like single chip boards. I considered doing like a shoot, is that still an RFC? I know that there was a proposed sensors interface that Kevin came up with a few months ago, where like it would be cool to just get kind of constant readings about air quality and then have it do something like send you a text message or something. I was specifically wondering about the difference between air quality inside of the house versus outside, and that would be, I think that'd be a pretty cool. Anything to do with sensors, just throw it somewhere would be pretty cool.
Yeah, to do that, we probably want either a GPIO capability provider or an I2C or both.
Wait, we have a GPIO capability provider, don't we?
I wrote one 3 years ago for super ancient versions of wasmCloud.
I was pretty sure that that was how we were actually displaying something on this little, or how we were interpolating like the input from the little buttons on this little Raspberry Pi. But I'll have to double check. I think that was Connor or Taylor that wrote some of that stuff. Wave share, that's what it is. Okay, so it's the OLED provider, but it does that using GPIO. And SPI and I2C. I can make up acronyms too.
I believe there's a new. Sorry, what was that?
Oh, never mind. You can go.
I was just going to mention that there's some work going on in for a proposal for WASI sensors, which should be interesting. You know, Jordan, I know that you have all of this, like, you know, these couple demos like your I2C and the LED one, that are all written in Go, I believe. And now that we're on the Rust host, I'm wondering, and we can load components, WASI components. I'm wondering what the possibility of getting those running is, so we could all share those as an example or a demonstration.
I can try and resurrect them. That's no problem.
If they work, I'd love to get them into the examples repo. Would be, I think, the ideal place for them to go.
Pretty sure you owe it to the fabric of reality, Jordan.
I don't know that we want to build the fabric of reality on anything that I put together.
All right, folks, I think we're hitting right at the end of time. So to avoid going over, I think I'll probably, we just say we can call it here today. Thank you so much. I guess Vance is off the call now, but Vance and Kevin for doing our awesome demos at the beginning of the call, and everybody for participating in the metrics in 0.78 discussion. And then, of course, getting to hang out a little bit and talk about little tiny embedded devices. It's really awesome to see wasmCloud working on that. So I hope we can just turn this discussion into a really fruitful demo. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, Jordan, or anyone who's got the little devices, because it's such a cool use case for WASM. And I will get off my soapbox before I get started. So thanks, everybody. Definitely looking forward to seeing you next week, and I'll talk to you later.